Good morning, everybody. It's Mike Pisani with Alpha Shark, and today we have a free webinar on July 14th. We're going to go over market sentiment and institutional flow, and then, as always, we'll go into your charts. Good morning, Albert. Good morning, Gordon. If you want to get a hold of me, Mike@smartoptiontrading.com is my email. Twitter handle is @OptionsMike. You guys should definitely follow me. If you follow me there, I post a lot of stuff up there for free all the time. That's not part of my included my service. It gives you a lot of good information that's actionable. And I try to post stuff that's actionable, not just fluff. So you guys will see that. And on YouTube, youtube.com/optionsmike, when I post webinars and free stuff, you can get notifications if you subscribe to me there. So what do we got today? Our risk disclaimer, right? Day trading, short-term trading, options trading, and futures trading are extremely risky undertakings. They generally are not appropriate for someone with limited capital, little or no trading experience, and or a low tolerance for risk. Never execute a trade unless you can afford to and are prepared to lose your entire investment. All trading operations involve serious risk, and you can lose your entire investment. No trades or recommendations or advice, and we cannot be sued for losses of capital. All trades are for educational purposes only. Contact your broker, RIA, for execution, margin, other capital requirements. Everyone watching this presentation adheres to all disclaimers on alphashark.com and myself, Mike Pisani. All right, that stuff's out of the way. Let's move on to the fun. So for today, I wanted to go over market sentiment, and then I have some interesting institutional flow I think you guys may want to take a look at. And then I'm going to talk to you about a course I just did and how you can get it on demand if it's something you're interested in. And then lastly, your charts. Does that sound like something fun for this morning? Spend a little time together, take a hard look at the markets and go from there with some options, some ideas I think that are pretty decent out there. All right, so let's jump into it. Oops, sorry. Market sentiment. So market sentiment here, I call this we're at a decision point. And if you've been watching the markets, we've been really kind of whipping around a little bit, but we have what I feel is a very kind of bullish tint starting to form in the market in the middle of summer, which is kind of interesting. We don't get this very often. So first of all, sentiment fear and greed index is now only 47. So you can see we're coming into earnings season, right? Earnings season kicked in yesterday with the banks reporting and really kicks into high gear this week. I have a slide on that. And you can see here at this point, we're pretty much in a very neutral state. We went from a month ago, we were greedy, then we went to fear, and now we're back into neutral. And this is kind of telling me that, the markets are set up for, they're not sure here. They look good, but they're not sure if they're ready to go or not, and they may be waiting to see what earnings reports look like, which is very possible. When we look at sentiment, and this is sentiment from people like you, right? These are people like ourselves out there. Sentiment on the SPY is at 59%, which is the highest it's been now in the last month, right? On the Qs, it's 58%. It's actually dropping, which is interesting because the Qs have been leading. And the IWM is really coming off now at 55%. So we're getting a big cool off in sentiment on the IWM, which kind of makes sense, right? Because the IWM has been leading us, right? We've been keeping talking about that. The IWM for the last couple of months has been the strongest of the indexes within the Qs after it, right? So then we like to look at the oscillators. So why do I look at all this stuff all the time, guys? It's to give me an idea and a concept of how is the market leaning sentiment-wise, or is it too hot, too overbought or oversold before I take a trade? That doesn't mean I still won't take the trade, but I want to know what's going on, or where do I think the market's going, and how much risk do I want to have on? So that's where all this kind of becomes important. So, NYMOT, which is an oscillator that tracks the New York Stock Exchange, right? You can see we got a decent sell signal down at 140, not as good as we'd love to get, but we got a pretty decent one. And then we did a very quick 2 or 3 day ramp up to 120 into the overbought zone, right? That was an area to go buy. And then we cooled off. And that's the beautiful thing that just happened. This little sideways action the last couple of days, this little back and forth, did a nice job of cooling off the oscillator, right? And the same goes through for the NAMOT. The NAMOT tracks the NASDAQ. And you can see the NAMOT, we're actually negative on right now, right? As we head into earnings season. It's just yourself. Everybody else hears me okay? Right? Everybody hears me just fine? Yep, good. Yep, I think it's just you, so I'll type that to you. So the oscillators here are saying we're also in a neutral location here. We're not overbought, we're not overbought, oversold. So, it's again saying the market's kind of prepped here. So what starts really in earnest this week, right? So earnings season, right? Earnings really, really kick in this week. And all you have to do is look at Monday morning and say, okay, well, you got BlackRock and Bank of America, but then you got the big one, right? Everybody is going to have eyes on Netflix on Monday night, right? And there was an article out there on CNBC last week talking about three stocks have accounted for 71% of the gains in the Nasdaq and the SPY. Do you guys know what three of those are? For 71% of the gains this year, three stocks. Anybody have a clue what three they were? Gordon, not quite. Nope, Amazon is not one of them. Netflix is one. Microsoft is the other. The other one was Intel, believe it or not. Right? But nice guesses. And so this week, we have two of those reporting, right? We have Netflix on Monday night and Microsoft on Thursday night. So this is a big week for the Qs and for tech and stuff, right? Because if these things don't hold up, we could see some weakness out there, right? Especially in the tech and beta names, right? They could come in. Now maybe they rotate finally into something else like the banks, but you need this needs to be part of your thinking process for the week. Do you understand now why I'm bringing this up? That if Netflix doesn't move the needle, or worse, it sells off, it could have a weight on the market. But we really get a lot of earnings coming in this week, and that's the thing to be aware of. That there's a lot of earnings coming in, and if you're watching options flow, you need to understand what's an options bet on earnings. And for this week, anything that comes in weeklies this week before they report, this is probably somebody taking a position based into earnings, whether they're right or wrong. Right, so you got the rest of the banks go this week. Then we start getting some of the oil companies coming in. We got some tech companies mixed in there. You got a very nice big different type of groupings this week. So there'll be a lot of things in focus. Okay. So SPY, do we break at the range of 280? And this is, I've been looking at this now for a better part of a month, right? So what I love about what's going on here right now, if you look at this structure, since we sold off and had the correction in February, we have a series of higher lows, right? Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher lows, right? And the 200-day has been support, and we actually haven't visited the 200-day in a while now. So we're definitely trending up in the right direction. We also had a series of lower highs that we are invalidating here, right? We are trying to invalidate this here with the candle that we put in on Friday. We took out that previous lower high from about a month ago. So, we're starting to see a change in character here in the SPY. And the SPY has been lagging from us here, right? Where other indexes have been making new all-time highs, the SPY has not gotten back to its high yet. RSI is not getting overbought yet. We have a little bit more room to go, and they have plenty of places to rotate. So I like the look here. It just may need a couple sessions before it breaks. It may be waiting to see how Netflix reports. Something else I like the look of here is when you look at this chart is, first off, look at the size of the candles this year. Since that sell-off, since the February sell-off, even the January ramp, look at the range we're getting for the most of the time on these candles, right? Notice how last year, how narrow the candles were back in summer, right? Look at now. We have big range candles. We have more volatility. We're getting bigger movements intraday. There's much more going on here than we usually typically have for this time of year. So this is definitely a market unlike we've seen in a long time. We have not seen a summer market like this in a long time, which begs the question, everybody said sell in May and go away. Well, if you sold in May and go away and went away, at this point, we've cleared the May highs, right? We've got a nice bounce, and now we're maybe on the purge of moving up. So the markets definitely are worth paying attention to here and keeping an eye on. The VIX is telling us there's absolutely no fear, right? The VIX is telling us there's no fear in this market, despite everything going on. There's nothing going on out there. So despite the political upheaval, despite what's going on with the trade wars and everything, it's really saying there's no fear. Yeah, volume is going down, Chris. You're right. Volume is absolutely going down, but this is typical summer. This is typical what we see in summer is low volume days. Okay, this is not unusual. In fact, if you look at yesterday, guys, I will tell you yesterday was a very typical Friday in the market. Volume early and then nothing the rest of the day for the most part, except into the close and very, very quiet. It's recording, Phil. Um, so World Cup is on, Wimbledon, but it's really just it's summer. Summer. They're paying attention, but they're not paying attention, right? They're the big traders are paying attention, but they're not. If something happens, they'll be all over it. But if there's nothing going on, they're just not showing a lot of interest here. But that's okay. That doesn't mean there's not room to play. All right. VIX is showing us no fear. This has a pattern now of lower highs coming in, right? It's working its way down. So Qs. So the Qs have been our leader since we had the sell-off, the correction in February, right? The Qs have now put in 3 new all-time highs, right? We had the first one right quick, we broke out. Then we had another one about a month ago, and now here we are, extended up here, but another all-time high. RSI is not cooked. We're just off the 8-day pretty big, right? So the Qs has been leading, and that's because of some of those names we talked about. You also mentioned names like Amazon, which has been incredibly strong. Google has finally come back to life, though it has not been leading until now. Now it's at an all-time high heading to earnings, right? So a lot of the FANG names have pushed out to all-time highs heading into earnings here. Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix had its pullback. What's the one big name that's lagging here? What's a big name in the market that still has yet to catch fire? Apple. Exactly, Romney. Apple. Apple's an interesting one. Apple's sitting here quietly, and I think a lot of it has to do with the trade war tensions. They're worried that something may happen to Apple. I don't know if you guys caught it very quietly. There was a PR piece by Apple yesterday on Thursday night. They opened up a $300 million clean energy fund or something in China. That was brilliant. That's their way of trying to make nice with China, so they don't do something to them, and looking good. So, Apple might wake up, especially if these names start running, if we have good earnings. It's a name to watch. So anyway, the Qs here, new all-time high, a little extended, but look great, right? Any dips at this point until it breaks the 8-day or 20, you stay with it, right? What we'd like to see it do now, if it can, you'd like to try to see it hold 178 on any pullback, if it can. The IWM has been interesting here. This led, right? This whole time it finally broke out where all the other indexes last year were making highs. This one finally broke out, got the move, and then we had a V bounce, right? 2 weeks ago, right? We had that vicious quick sell off and then a nice big V bounce. And now it's pulled back here and it's consolidating on this area. So it's basically consolidating on this 166 area, so 167 area, which was resistance, is now support. And if it continues to hold that, this could lead us again. And again, RSI has come way down, right? So we're getting some, it's creating room to run without doing any real damage here. And what's the one thing that's been hurting the IWM? And I got to thank my friend Chris for this because he picked up on it, pointed out. He's in my service. All right. It's been the regional banks have been getting hammered lately, and they're a big component in the IWM. So one of the reasons we're seeing this weakness in the IWM the last week is the regional banks have been getting hit. So if they don't report until this week, they start reporting this week and next week. So, we'll see how that plays out. All right. So any questions on sentiment? I think, guys, when I look at the charts here and everything looks good. And let's go back to the SPY one real quick. This long-term SPY, if we saw this pattern on an intraday chart, right? If this was a 5 or 15-minute chart, and we saw this dip, and then we saw this rising wedge like this into resistance, we'd be looking for what? We'd be looking for a breakout here, right? We'll all be looking for a breakout. And that's what this chart looks like, right? As ugly and as volatile and as messy as this chart is at this point, we're all looking for that breakout. We have now this 270 area continues to be support. So we'll see. It doesn't mean it's going to get it, but it certainly has everybody looking at it. And then, it is summer. Questions? Okay. Institutional flow. So there's been some really interesting bets that have come in lately that are not really necessarily earnings bets that have caught my attention. So first off, I'm going to start off with Roku. Now, Roku, if you see here on the daily chart, is it made a nice big cup, a handle, and now it's breaking above the handle, right? You see how it's starting to break out here finally, right? It has a gap to fill to 5110. That's where my mark says that, right? You see that equals 5110? It's telling me there's a gap to fill there. And a day, not Friday, look like on Thursday. Look at what came into this. August 50 and August 43 calls in size. And for Roku, that is big size, right? You say, 640 of those, 1,600. That's not a lot. For that name, that's big size. All right. To put it in perspective, right? It's understanding that. And look what happened. Look at the reaction. That was Thursday. Look at the reaction. Then we got more of a move on Friday out of the Bollinger Band, pull back into the close. This thing looks like it's going to run up and finish filling. So if you get any kind of weakness, I would look to try this one again. Finish filling this gap and maybe explode higher and then try, I think 58 is his all-time high. Hasn't been around that often, right? So you could write those down. The August 50s and the August 46s. The August 50s are what I would play if you like the name, or just play Common. I actually bought a bunch of Common that I've been holding now for a couple days on it. Questions on Roku? Oh, by the way, they had great news about a week ago too. Did you guys? The Samsung is putting them on their TVs. That was one of the big manufacturers they did not have a affiliation with. Okay. PAGS. This is a really interesting name. So the one thing I do not love about PAGS, does anybody know what they are? They are a Brazilian company. So that has my guard up, right? Brazilian companies, Brazil has been bad. The third emerging markets have been tough here at this point. But starting Thursday, we started seeing massive buying into this name. So November 25 calls, July 30 calls, right? And then yesterday, and there was actually in the July 30s, or the November 25s, I think there was almost $3.5 million of it bought. Right. And then they started coming yesterday morning right away, and they started coming in closer. See the August 25 calls, they hit that a bunch of time, right? Then they hit the August 30s, and they came to the July 30s here as they came in. So you can see the flow that I'm picking up on off my private Twitter feed. They've done this once before. See that red arrow? The day the gap down that morning, they came into this name big time. They got a nice 3-day move. It does need to take out the 8-day moving average, right? You see this blue line on it on the chart? You guys see that? That blue line represents the 8-day moving average. You see how since it has broken it on the gap down, that it has not been able to get back a close above it, right? We have not yet had a close above it. And yesterday they took us right to it and closed us right on it. But this is a name with all that flow I'd like. I will tell you the options are not the easiest to trade. They tend to be a little wide, and the IV is a little jacked on this name. That said, it trades well during the day. It's easily traded with Common as well. That's pretty tight there. I actually scalped it yesterday twice with Common. So, if it's a name you like, this is something to keep an eye on. I'm looking at this on Monday morning. It's on one of my tops on the list to keep an eye on as we go into next week. Any questions on PAGs? Right? One of the things I love is when they start out in time and they come in further and closer and closer with the option flow, right? That shows me that they're coming after it. Common stock, Kerry, regular stock, just stock, not options. All right. 550 EA. Not sure what that one means. Okay. So another one for you. IGT. Yeah, 550 each. Yeah, they're not the cheapest of options, Chris. That's why I was using Common. Does that make sense? They're I'm not following you, Chris. End of month. All right, move on. Hit me up with a private message. Common stock, regular stock. So options are options, stock, right? I call it common, right? So I would literally grab 1,000 shares at a time and take it for a ride for whatever it is and get out. Okay. IGT is another name. So since this sell-off here, they've been buying this thing all the way down, and it hasn't worked. But for the first time, they started buying this yesterday and today, yesterday again, and we're starting to see it curl back up and change differently, right? We're back above the 8 and the 21-day moving average. We had lots of call buying. What I loved about this call buying is it all came in late in the day. So this wasn't call buying that was coming in the morning. They started coming in around noon on this, and they bought it all afternoon, right up into late in the day. And IGT is one of those names when it wants to get going, it can move. And if you look at this chart, to me, it has room to about 26 right now. That's the top of the Bollinger Band, the 50 days. So if it wants to go, you got a couple dollar move here. The options are pretty good, and they're very reasonably priced, and they're very liquid. There's a lot of liquidity in this name. So keep an eye on this one, see what it does. But you can see the July 24s and 25s, they were very, very active. Again, something just trying to give you guys some ideas, things that the big guys are playing with. Micron. Who doesn't love Micron here, right? I love trading this name. Okay, I love trading this name. Micron. So we had the earnings didn't get a great reaction. Then we had the news that China was going to limit them. Remember that big move down a couple Fridays ago. Then we got follow through. But the name didn't break down, and it's nicely recovering here. And now it's filling this little gap that it hadn't filled. And there's been tons of flow into it, but really they started coming in the big ones here. The August 65 calls, 4,000 of them, 172K. This was more than that. Those August 65s ended up being about 23,000 of them bought throughout the day in increments of about 2,000 a pop. So somebody's looking for a big, quick move in Micron here. They're a little cheap, and they're cheap, right? They're 42 cents, not very expensive. But the one that really caught my eye was the Jan 60s. They hit that really hard a couple days ago, and they've hit it a couple times since then. So, I like that long-term buying out in Micron. Usually that's a sign that, somebody's looking to have a long-term position in it, and they're willing to pay to get into it, right? 2.5 million on that one, probably about another $1.5 million worth of it bought over the last 2 days into the same strike. So I would keep an eye on Micron here. If it fills that gap, then it has a quick run back to 60. There's not much resistance if it can get through there once it gets through that gap down area. So I'd keep an eye on that name there as well. All right. One more for you. Trip. So Trip has been, if you guys been looking at this chart, this thing has had a big move off the lows here up at 60. And somebody still believes in it. And Trip doesn't get a lot of big flow. It gets a lot of little momentum type flow throughout the days. But somebody came in on Thursday and they just, they put a big order in. This is for Trip. This is a big order. The Jan 65 calls, 1,300 of them. So somebody's betting that this is not over. So I don't usually like taking names up at all, when they're up this far already and they're up this high. But look at this chart. You have that beautiful change on earnings, right? You get that big move up. And, since then, we just been going up, up, and up. We come down, we curving, came in a little bit, curving back up, and about ready to run here again above this 60 area. So if it's a name you like, this is another one I would keep my eyes on as well. So there's a couple different ideas for you guys. Different names you can take a look at, different names out there that they're seeing some flow. A lot of the flow right now is around earnings, right? So, these are names that, they all have earnings coming, but this type of flow is not really earnings flow. They're going further out in time, or they're not catching earnings. So that's what we like about flow like that, and just some different ideas for some names you may not be looking at on a regular basis. Any questions on any of the flow or the names I brought up for you guys? Do I put a lot of weight in options that expire in January? Robert, for me, typically in summer, this time of year, I'm looking for longer term trades on anything I want to swing. I don't want to be swinging anything that is short term for the most part, because summer is typically choppier. It's lighter volume. It's harder to get a hands on. So somebody coming out and putting a big, nice bet into January here is basically saying that they believe this name's going higher, and they believe that there's a lot of it. Just they're just not sure when it's coming. But I like that because it gives me time to adjust. But I don't take a big position in it, Robert. So I'll take fewer. I'll keep my, I will take a smaller position so I can add to it if I need to, if it takes time. This is being recorded, Chuck. You can go, I'll post it on my Twitter feed when I'm done. Do I think volatility will drop this summer? I mean, volatility's already dropped. Volatility's back, the VIX is down right around the 12 area again. Historically, that's pretty much an area that's low. So volatility is really kind of down. We're just seeing wider range candles. I think that'll keep going on until there's some type of resolution with all these trade wars going back and forth, or the tariffs and everything. All right. All right. So, educational offering. Day trading off option flow and just trading off option flow. I did a course about a month ago. It was you guys very well attended, and I'm offering it now on demand. So if you guys would like to get a copy of it and watch it, this course goes over how to use technicals and options flow to day trade and to trade, swing trade with it. And really it talks about, why we look at the option flow to come in, and we look at technically where the stock's at. So if you see what I like to do is, if I see a stock that is, very extended in the short-term time frame, there's a lot of option flow still coming in, I'll wait for a dip to buy it back. And what I did in this class is I went over with you good spots to enter in, where to try to buy these options to minimize your risk or use common in it. And, different tools I use. These are all free studies that are out there that you can use as well to determine whether this is a spot you should be getting into an option or a trade, or getting out of an option or a trade. So with this course, we go over how to identify the momentum flow, quick technical determination, right? So if the stock's in a good spot or not. The number one biggest indicator to me is volume. So we look at volume. I tell you how to identify good volume, what you should be looking at. I tell you how I set up my charts intraday and the patterns I'm looking for and the different types of information there. And, we go over in general what types of options to buying to look for, what repeat action looks like, and where to put your stop losses if you're trading unusual option activity, like a name like PAGS that we just talked about, and where to start taking profits. So if you've already caught this course, you should have a copy of it. If you haven't gotten it and you're interested in it, it's on demand, http://alphashark.com/education. It's a 2-hour course for only $99. It comes with a free indicator that AK offered, the high-low indicator. And if you sign up, and you take the course here, just let me know. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up on private Twitter, and I will be happy to answer all your questions, and I'll send this to all of you, the link. So if you're interested in signing up for it, would love to have you guys in my course, come in, take a look at it. And actually, you know what, if you guys sign up for it on demand, I'll give you a free month access to my my private Twitter feed, but you have to show me proof of purchase. So you have to hit me up directly, okay? So if you will do that, you let me know, be happy to do that as well. So again, $99 for this course, if you're interested in. And honestly today, guys, this is all I have to talk about with you. And I thought we spent the next little while going over charts. I know you guys like to have me look at charts, and we go spend some time on that. How's that sound for you guys? Does it sound like something fun for the last half hour or so today? Yep, you get to keep the course, Sean. You get the copy of it. You absolutely get a copy of it. Keep it. That's the purpose of it. It's not a one-time. You can view it as often as you like. You're welcome. All right. So, let me pull my trusty thing up here. All right. So, this is where you guys can start putting in some stock symbols one at a time. All right. Let some people get everybody in, and then we'll hit them all up. Okay. We'll get through as many as we can. So let's see. I already saw some people putting some in. All right, so, oops, I just lost my scroll. Hang on. My questions just scrolled away on me. There we go. Okay, we were having a little bit. Intel, I see. We want to take a look at Intel. I saw somebody wanted to look at that. So Intel has earnings coming up. Does Intel have any juice left in it? So this is where I say sometimes you have to look at this in a couple different ways, right? So I'm going to pull up another chart here. So just bear with me to get this set up real quick for you. All right. So a lot of times, especially on the last day of the month, I spend a lot of, after we close, looking at monthly charts or weekly charts, depending on what it is. So on a weekly chart here, when you look at Intel, all we've done here, we had a huge breakout, right? From this area, this 35, this 37 area. Where's my, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So we had a huge breakout from here. We had a big run up to 58, right? And all we're doing now is consolidating and cooling off down here as we come into earnings season. So does it have any juice left? The one thing I would say here is all the semis seem to be a little bit struggling a little bit here, Ida. They've been leading us for a while, and they seem to all be struggling. So I think for Intel, it comes about earnings. I will say this: I think if Microsoft and Netflix are good this week, this name probably catches fire and tries to run into earnings. So if you're looking to play it into earnings, I would wait for one of those two names to report. The other thing I did see is that PC sales around the world are up large. This is for the first time in a while. So that's obviously going to be helping them. When's my next webinar? My next webinar, I have to look it up. I'll get back to you on that one. I think it's this week, but I have to double check. All right, GE. GE, guys, is one of the names I almost never play. If you like this name, I think this is an investment, a long-term hold down here. It does look like it's trying to bottom out down here, okay? It really does quite look like it's trying to bottom. We got a double bottom here, and it's trying to wake back up and maybe get going again. It's a tough name. It does not trade well with options because it very rarely moves big. So that was my one concern with that. I don't think there's even reason to look at a weekly chart on this because it's just been straight down for the last 5 years. Yeah, there's just nothing here. But this is a name they'll probably come in again. Again, it has a lot of parts to it, so you have to see how they handle it. Not a name I'd look to. Netflix. So Netflix has been incredible, right? And the first thing you want to do is you want to come to a long-term chart, and you need to understand where this thing has come from. And by that, what I mean is Netflix, when we reported last year, was around $150 a share when it reported a year ago, and now it's up in the 400s, right? And look at this just meteoric rise here, right? Nonstop, up, 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 on a weekly chart, basically riding the 8-day, right? So, if you ever look at a weekly chart and you see Netflix down around the 8-day, it's been a buy there every time. So we have earnings on Monday night. So Elizabeth, my answer to you would be ask me on Tuesday morning. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything, but it's not even about their numbers so much. It's about their subscribers, right? So if they deliver with subscribers, it can go. If they kill it with subscribers, but if they don't, it could be in trouble. So it's run a long way. It can come down a long way from here. It could easily drop $100 at this point down towards 300. If it's weak, if it's strong, we could be looking at a $500 stock within a very short amount of time. I can't, that's the type of thing we're in with that one at this point. Make sense? Healy, H-E-L-E. Not a name I'm usually familiar with. Okay. Oh, Helen. Okay, now I know them. Beautiful gap up. Was that earnings or news, whatever that was? So it pulled into the gap, not what we like to see on the right away, but it held the 8-day and is back above it. So it's overbought up here. It probably needs to go sideways for a bit to work this off, right? The longer it consolidates, the better the chance it eventually will continue. So I'd watch it. You have a big gap here. So as long as it continues to hold this 110 area now, I think I would try to long it off of there. Nice looking chart. Just out of curiosity, I don't know how long they've been around for. Right, broke out. Nice big breakout from a long-term consolidation. That's a chart that may look to run a bit. So keep an eye on it. And if you're in it, just play it, stay long versus that gap. If you're not in it, try to go long off of that if it gets that dip for you. Banks are, I don't understand what the catalyst is going to be here for them at this point. Honest answer here is every good catalyst in these names have been sold now since January, right? The XLF here just showing you we're below the 200-day. We're struggling even to take the eight moving day average now. We're below all the moving averages here. Coming into earnings on Friday, my thought was very simple. They already announced their buybacks and dividends. What could they possibly announce that's going to move the needle here, right? And by what that I mean is we've had deregulation. We've had lots of interest rate hikes. We're expecting at least one more, if not two more this year. If none of these have gotten the banks moving, what could they possibly announce in earnings that's going to get them moving? I would love to see this sector go. We could certainly need to see this sector go, Romney, but I just don't know here at this point, right? So Bank of America has earnings on Monday, and we'll see, but none of the other banks were good coming off of this. VRX, Valiant. So Valiant is about to go through a name change. They have a lot going on there. Yeah, a lot going on Valiant here. The beautiful thing about this name is it has a massive short squeeze that can happen if it can get back to this point. So here's your weekly chart, right? We all know about this, right? This was all the CEO being an absolute tool, okay? And we dumped, and now we've come back up nicely into this range. And we, if you look on a weekly chart, you have a defined uptrend here, right? You see this nice. Sometimes, hopefully, if I draw it for you real quick, right? So any tests of that trend are a buying opportunity. Does that make sense? So right now it's up around, be around 1990, 1920 area as it moves on out. So this is a nice looking chart on a weekly. Anything here, when you look at it, and if you're looking to play it, so you make a note on that, that's a buying opportunity spot there. And here, first of all, you have a gap now, right? So you have this gap down. So if it gets to that gap, it could fill that gap. That's a nice, easy move. And if it gets back above this 27 area, 28 area, it's going to start squeezing the shorts, right? It has a massive short interest. That's why you got some of these moves here. This was short covering, right? This is squeezing shorts, getting them out. So we like to watch names like that. So that's something, it's a nice looking chart in August. See how it reacts though. See, might come a little lower before it's ready to go here. Team. Another nice looking chart, right? All the way up here, testing this high. I don't know if that's an all-time high or not. Yep, all-time highs. So nice looking chart. This is not that old of a stock. I don't know if I try to buy it for a breakout, but if I can get dips down in here, I would try buying it there. Chart looks nice. Looks nice, just not ready to go yet at this point, but looks good. JP Morgan, guys, the banks, there's not much I can say about the banks that I haven't said already. Okay, again, great earnings, investment revenues through the roof, and it's still sold off yesterday. I literally don't know what to tell you. It's best in breed though. If any bank's going to be good, it should be the one that should be good, and it's just not. Um, to me, the banks right now, I do have some exposure. I have some August calls on the XLF, and I have some Bank of America, but I'm just holding those. I own the common stock on Bank of America, and I'm just waiting here to see something come forth. Right now, there's nothing going on there. I'd be careful with the banks until they wake up. WBA. Walgreens. Walgreens is trying to get going here after that big gap down, starting to come back up. Almost filled it here. I don't trade Walgreens. It got that got put onto it got added to the what index? The Dow, right? I think got added to the Dow. Um, I don't love this stock. It doesn't trade well for me. I don't usually trade it. It's been in one of these things, and I think with all the news potential with eventually Trump and doing something about drug pricing, you got to be careful with these. But right now, it's in a nice little uptrend here. It has room up to the 200-day if it wants it, which would be put it right back into this 58 area. Home Depot. Home Depot's been catching some put flow the last couple of days. But the chart looks nice. So cup, handle, right? Cup formation, handle starting to come up. It clears the cup here above 200. It'll try to run back towards this 205 and maybe break out ahead of earnings. This is typically a bullish time of year for Home Depot, right? Hurricane season comes in. So we haven't had any landfalling, thank God, hurricanes yet. But if those start to happen, you always look for this name in Lowe's to get something going there. IQ. IQ is a tough name to trade, guys. But that said, the stock is looking interesting here. So this is the Netflix of China, right? Netflix is never going to get into China, right? So you don't have to worry about Netflix with the trade wars and tariffs. But they have IQs in there, right? And you have this meteoric rise in this name, the recent IPO, right? And now you had a big cool off, which is normal. And now it's trying to build again down here on some good volume. right? So there was a nice couple day trade here, and you got pretty much an inside day here yesterday. There's been some good call buying in it. For me, if it continues to hold the 8 and the 21 day here and might have a room, then you could see, okay, maybe you could take it back up towards this 37 area and then see if it really wants to get going. So we'll see. AMD has been the best chip maker of late by far, right? Look at this beautiful move up here. It's been getting upgrades galore. It's been acting well. Every dip is being bought in this name fairly aggressively. Been seeing some buying out in January 20s now. They've been buying on those. You go to a weekly chart here and you can see how big of a move this has had already. So, you just need to put this in the back of your head that this thing's already come way off the lows. It's up big. It did a nice consolidation and has moved again. It'll move based upon Intel and some of the other chip makers. So keep an eye on the other ones before as we head into earnings. And I'll look at Snap. I don't like Snap as a company, guys, so I don't touch it very often. What I don't like about this, it had this beautiful move off the lows here, and it's trying to consolidate and rise up. But even when they get good news, like on these days, it gets sold off pretty quickly. I just don't know. I think they're going to really take a hard look at earnings on this name. That's really what they're waiting for, the catalyst there. You have Facebook and you have Twitter. Those will also play into it. For now, it's still below the 200 days, so it's just quick trades for me at this point on this name until it can start to wake up a little bit more. Microsoft, I don't know that name, TJ. I don't know which one you're talking about there. Microsoft hit a new all-time high yesterday. All right, broke out incredibly strong. Earnings are on Thursday. You got to see what earnings look like on this name. I'm not trying to, Robert, not trying to ditch you on this one, but if you're in it, if I had it and I was trading with options, I'd be taking my profits and getting out here before earnings and get out of the way there, for me personally. Unless you want to play earnings, in which case I would take a cheap bet, especially since it's run so much. Boeing. So Boeing here has been on this incredible move up and going sideways and finally just filled this little gap yesterday here. You can see it just about filled it right to it. It's squarely caught up right now in the tariff wars and everything going on, Larry. So Boeing, Cat, Deere, trade these with care until this gets resolved, right? Their costs are going up. There's a lot of things at work here. Overall, I like the company. I like what's going on. But, what if China cancels a whole bunch of their orders to them over this? So I think you got to be a little bit careful with that. Kirk, we went over the SPY earlier. So I'm not going to do that one again. We did AMD. XLU, utilities. Utilities have been tough. Oh, they had a nice real rebound. I didn't play it, right? Nice bounce, big sell here, and now bouncing back. This is a sector I actually kind of lost track of. Been weak for a while. Right? Weekly chart shows no real big deal, just kind of consolidating down here. So on a daily chart, when I come back to it, it's recaptured all the moving averages, the 8-day. This is a sector, if it wants to go, it has to take out 53.25. And then, it gets above and tries to run up to 54. It doesn't move very much. I'd rather play the individual names, I think, in this sector, JP. But nice look there. I didn't even realize we'd come back up this much. I hadn't been paying attention to it. Adobe. So some of these software names have been on fire, guys, if you've been paying attention this week. ATVI, Take-Two, CRM, Adobe, they're all Oracle, all moving up, all strong moves this week. So Adobe, the earning weakness has now been bought back. Remember, they reported late and now almost back to all-time highs during the party. So, again, you look out there, there's a common theme, right? Tech names are the ones that are acting the best. These continue to run higher. These software names have been on a roll. Beautiful chart here. Just what you need to be aware of now is when the names like them report, Kerry, right? So keep an eye on when names report in their same space, so you know what to expect with it. But if you're in it, I'd try to ride it for a breakout. If you're not, I would try to look for a dip to buy for a breakout. I hate the breakout word. It usually gets us in trouble. James, Twitter is one of my favorite stocks in the world, but I think it's a very dangerous stock until earnings right now. And the reason is, I'll give it some in a couple ways, reasons for that. So first off, huge bottoming, right? Look at this nice big bottom here. I've made a ton of money on Twitter since November. And, on a weekly chart, you're flagging here nicely, getting ready for a break. And it certainly looks like 50 is easily in play, maybe even all the way up towards this 53 and maybe even up to 54 here at this point. What's going on here is we have this beautiful move. We had a beautiful move up, controlled downtrend to the 21-day, and then we broke out, and then we got the news on the accounts, and we've seen some weakness now on that. And I think what's happening here is they're going to wait to see how all these 70 plus million accounts they deleted are going to affect the stock going into, in the earnings. What I love about this chart, and this chart tells me, is Twitter's getting its act together. The fact that they're taking this action tells you they're trying to really make themselves a very legitimate company and making themselves more attractive. I'm not the biggest Jim Cramer fan in the world, although he does have some things. And I remember one time he said long ago, he said, nobody buys companies when they're, just because they're cheap, right? So when Twitter was, stuck down here around 15, there was no reason to buy it just because they're cheap. They like to buy companies that have a good story to tell and they're coming up. Twitter, believe it or not now, for a buyout is much more attractive up here than it was down here because the company is growing subscribers, it's growing revenue, and it's becoming more of an attractive company with their data streaming. So I like Twitter long term here. I just don't know going to earnings what to expect this time. I liked it the last couple times here. I'm a little bit more leery here. Long answer there, James. Oh, sorry for that. ALGN, Albert? Allegan. Yep, another one. Look at this. Nice big move up, right? Control pullback and now breaking back up. Any dips you want to try for a breakout, go. Just note when just you got to note in the name like this is when are earnings, right? The only thing you got to be aware of is when our earnings are in this name. Earnings are going to be big for these stocks, especially right now. So you just keep it, especially after big runs like this. But beautiful looking chart. I'd try to buy dips and just be leery of earnings on it. SYMC, there were some bets in that. I think they caught earnings though. I remember seeing some flow into that, Melissa, this week. So, they've obviously got beat up here. This was a big beat down. You got a massive gap now to play for, right? So nice chart, by the way. Thanks for bringing my attention to it. Guys, I always love this stuff, but we all lose track of stuff. You can only watch so much, but that's why I love doing this with you guys, because sometimes I find stuff. So if you're looking at this, the first stop here is the gap, right? So if it's going to be any good, it has to get out of the Bollinger Bands above the 50-day, and then it's going to run to the gap. And at that point, RSI is probably going to be hot. Does that make sense? And then when you get a hot RSI, okay, it's probably going to hit it the first time and pull back. And then it may try to go in. It's probably going to need earnings to get in the gap. So just keep an eye on that. But that's your next move. Your next move here would be a move up to the gap. I'm not sure when earnings are in this name, though. I'm sure they're soon. NVIDIA. Guys, NVIDIA has been a tough stock lately. There was a negative note out on it yesterday. That's why it had the weakness. It just doesn't want to break out yet. But again, when you look at NVIDIA, guys, you have to go look at the big picture. So I do think NVIDIA still gets to 300 somehow, some way before the year's over if the market doesn't sell off completely. But look at this run, right? We've gone from 20s to 268 in a very short time. And if you look on a weekly chart, all we're doing here is really just consolidating on the 21-day on the weekly, right? There's no real problem here. But the daily chart right now is noisy. And if you're trying to sit in options, you're getting chopped apart. So you need to wait for the catalyst for them to want this name. And it does have a tendency to wake up out of nowhere. This last time right here, right? Woke up, got above the 8-day, and then ran right into earnings, right? Boom. Ran into earnings. Oh, that's right. That was here. This was your run into earnings, right? Ran up into earnings. Just woke up and ran into earnings. So you got to watch this name. It does like to run into earnings, so keep an eye on it. Just a tough name here. For me, it has to break above this 255 area at this point. So if you like it, try buying dips off the 8-day. Make sure to see how it holds up. J&J, they were buying weekly calls this week, and I couldn't figure out why. And now we know why. They were playing for good news on the on the legal case against them for the cancer. And they got bad news. They had to pay 4 point something billion. That's why you had that big gap down. It actually came back strong yesterday and then it sold off. They defended the stock. I don't know here. There's a lot of noise, Elizabeth, around this now. I'd be a little bit careful with it here at this point. Earnings is obviously the next catalyst for them. If you look at this, though, it's still holding the breakout level, right? There we go. It's still holding the breakout level. So as long as we continue to hold this breakout level, it's still pretty strong for me. So I would look to try it off of that as long as it holds that. But up here, I don't have a good feel for it one way or the other. It wouldn't be something I'm looking at. Walmart, what do we got, about 8 minutes yet? Okay. I'll speed myself up a bit. Yeah, BA looks nice. Walmart, this one's been lagging. Costco's been making an all-time high. This one's lagging. It's trying to wake up here. If it can really get going here, and all the news on the next 2 days is going to be about Amazon and Prime Day, right? If this thing can wake up here and go, next stop, it would be a big test of the 200-day. It's been below that now for quite some time here, right, since we lost it. So if it can get back to the 200-day, then it can start to get some more institutional buyers and start to rebuild here. It's not the most compelling chart, but it is trying to wake up here. So I'll keep an eye on it. Avgo. I see your note. Appreciate it. Naga? Avgo. So Avgo, Avgo wanted to buy Qualcomm, right? And they got told they couldn't do it. And so they came in now and they bought CA. And they spent, what, 19 billion or something like that on that the other day. And they did not like that move at all. And since they didn't like it here, you have to be respected. So you have a big gap now to trade against, right? This gap is all the way up here. It's extended to the downside. What I do not like here is yesterday it tried to bounce and sold back off again. If you like to day trade and scalp, I think there's a lot of movement to be had in this one over the next couple days in either direction if you're quick and tight. From an investment standpoint, if you like this company long term, you probably got a great discount down here. I would wait at least another day or two before I took a swing long on it, though, here to see how this is going to shake out. See if it wants to come back up and try to reconnect with the 8-day and get back up here. Be careful. Very, very careful. Baba. Baba is the poster child right now for the trade war with China, the tariffs. This thing cannot wake back up despite nothing bad going on it. I do love the name, so I do think if that gets resolved, that is one of my go-to names here on Baba. But right now, you can see it had this huge move. It's still really just consolidating it. But if you look at a daily, it's just choppy and messy. The 21-day now, we have not been able to break back above it, right? And we're kind of in this kind of neutral zone where we're holding the 200-day. We're right on the 8-day and the 20 and the 100-day here. It's just choppy. And until, I just be careful. I don't think it's ready for long-term swings. And, I love this gap here. So it's on my list. I have an alert marked on my charts here for this gap fill. But right now it's just showing no power, nothing there. Oh, sorry about that, Mark. Apologies. Baidu. Baidu's actually been acting better for whatever reason. Another one, right? Baidu's been acting stronger here in this space. Definitely looking better, looking stronger here in this space. Struggling to break this high, right? This was the all-time high. It got a couple quick pops above and then sold off. This sell-off here was based upon them getting out of some of the technology they were getting into that they liked. Overall, they just announced a big buyback. It looks good. Again, you just have to be worried about the tariff wars on this one. Lamb, what is it? What is Lamb's symbol, Kerry? Is it LRCX? Haha. I don't look at that one very often, so that's why I got to think about that. They've sold this off since last earnings and has shown no signs of loving it. It's charts for me is kind of in limbo. It's trying to hold this previous high from last year in this area. So it still has support around 167, let's call it 167.50 for argument's sake, this area, or even 167 itself. But it's just showing no power, but the whole space is not, for the most part, showing power at this point. So I would be more likely just to leave this name alone for now, unless you see some big buying or something changes. All right, last two guys, AMAT. AMAT, same kind of thing. AMAT has been sold off here at this point from these highs, cannot get going. There was some call buying in it last week, and they sold it off after it got a little pop. You know, this gap is right here. It can't get into it. Again, trying to hold down here, but showing no power. I would be very, very careful with it at this point, and just be leery of it unless the chips start to go, in which case I would take a look at it. I just think if I want to play the chip makers right now, AMD, Micron, Intel seem to be the favorites in that space, and maybe NVIDIA comes back to life. But if you like AMAT, give it a shot. And last one we'll do is Celgene. Celgene here, guys. So this name is tough. This used to be the best in breed biotech, and despite their purchasing of who they purchased, was it Kite or Blue? I forget which one. Their pipeline has been decimated a lot. They had a bunch of very high profile drug failures. It's trying to wake up here. We've seen some call buying into it lately. In fact, let me pull up my chart here real quick, my thing. One sec. I got to get this for you. I know there was something, and I'm happy to give this to you while I have you here. So yesterday they were buying the July 88s. Okay, I don't know if that's next week. I don't know if that catches earnings or not at this point. I don't think it does. So they're looking for a move next week on it. So for what it's worth. Guys, thank you for spending some of your Saturday morning with me. I will be posting charts and stuff on tomorrow night on my private Twitter feed, so feel free to follow me there. If you're interested in my course that I offered on demand, you guys can get it at alphashark.com/education. It's Mike Perry, not Andrew, but you're welcome. Thank you, Elizabeth. And everybody, enjoy your weekend. Get out. Don't worry about the markets here. The markets look pretty good. We're going into earnings. I think really we'll see what happens as we go into earnings, and really watch Netflix. How Netflix reacts could be a big clue on what the markets do here. Thanks, guys. Take care. I'll post this on Twitter once it's done.